What's up, college football fans? Welcome in. This is Breaking the Huddle. I'm Joel Klatt. This show is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Remember, it is the one fans deserve. And happy to be here after week one of the college football season. What a great week one it was. By the way, one of the reasons I love week one is because it's like 5 days long. We just get so many games, and it did not disappoint. And I will get into that here a little bit later in the program. Lots to get into. And of course, looking forward, we have Bama Texas week. Big Noon Saturday will be there. Gus, Ginny, and I will have the call. Big Noon Kickoff will be there from site. Certainly the focus of the college football world there on Austin, Texas. But first, I'm going to break down this college football playoff expansion that we got as a news dump last week on Friday. Some thoughts on that and why I feel like there's some plagiarism going on right now in college football. A little bit of that. Bryce Young's going to join the show, the Heisman Trophy winner. We'll get into my top 10 as well. Some thoughts on a few of those teams, and then we'll get to some ClattBack. That's all coming up here on Breaking the Huddle. But first, we've got to get into this playoff expansion. Folks, you've wanted it. I've wanted it. And one of the reasons is because the 4-team playoff in its current model has been detrimental to the sport. So I've been arguing for a while for a certain change to the playoff, and it just so happens it looks real familiar. Check this out from last year. There's two versions of a playoff that I think would be best. 12 and 14 teams, not 8, not 10, and not 16. The reason I don't love 8 is because I think too much of the playoff would be taken up with automatic berths, and I don't like that. 10 is not good because it's essentially just an 8-team playoff with play-in games. I don't want just play-in games. 16 seems great, but then you don't have first-round buys, which means that we would be minimizing the effect of some great conference championship games because we know that those teams would both be in. So you need to incentivize the games at the top end of college football late in the season by offering buys in the first couple of rounds or the first round of the playoffs. So here's what it would look like. Let's start with a 12-team scenario just based on the rankings that we saw a night ago. Now, there's a couple of caveats here, folks, that I do want to get out of the way. I would honor conference champions more. So I would say that the 6 best champions in college football, the best conference champions, get automatic bursts into this playoff. And then we would go in the 12-team version with the 6 at-large teams after that. Now, we wouldn't just seed them and say you get home games if you're seeded based on the rankings. No. It would be the top 4 champions would get home games and buys into the first round. And then the next 2 champions and the 2 highest at-large teams would host those first-round games, and we would go from there. I think that would be very important because if you're offering a bye and a home playoff game in the first round for not only these first round games but also the second round games, what you would get is, let's say Alabama and Georgia are playing in the SEC championship game and everyone imagines like, well, they're both going to go to the playoff. You want to incentivize the winner of that game. You want them to play that game as hard as they possibly can, not just for pride. So what do? You attach a first round bye and a home field advantage playoff game to that winner. Now we've got something, and we've got 4 of those teams hosting in the second round as well. We've got to play on campus, folks. We've got to play on campus. We can't have these games in bowl games. We have too many neutral site games as it is. These need to be on campus to incentivize the late season games against very powerful opponents. So that's what a 12-team playoff would look like. Well. Looky what we have here. Folks, it was almost verbatim what the College Football Playoff Board of Directors gave us. I mean, almost verbatim. And for a bunch of, chancellors and presidents, it looks an awful lot like plagiarizing. If you know what I mean. I don't care. Listen, I don't need credit. They aren't going to go on campus for that second round like I was arguing for. I still think that would be the best model, but they're all caught up in trying to save the bowl system and save those bowls. Those are too entrenched in college football. So the second round is likely going to be at bowl sites so that we can retain these 6 major bowls that will kind of house, if you will, these playoff games. Listen, a couple of reactions after watching that and what we're seeing here in the direction of the playoff for college football. First and foremost, apparently I always wear blue. Okay, so that's just the thing, and it happens. And what can I say? My eyes are blue, and my wife likes it. 2, they plagiarized me. There is not a doubt in my mind that they were watching Breaking the Huddle last year, and they were like, "Hey, this whippersnapper's got something," which I don't care because, by the way, I had these conversations with all sorts of people, and I wasn't the only one to have this idea, certainly, but I'm glad that they got to this point. Now let's get to the actual reactions of what we're about to get here in the near future, hopefully, in college football. First and foremost, folks, I will argue until I'm blue in the face that the 4-team playoff has been detrimental to the sport, okay? Because we have essentially redefined success as only to do with the playoff. Well, that's too few teams. In fact, there's only been 13 teams that have made the college football playoff in its history. That's only 10% of college football. That's not enough. If we would have had this 12-team model retroactively over the course of the last 8 seasons, let's say, during the playoff era, we would have had 41 total teams, which is an additional 28 programs that could have had a clear definition of success in order to help their recruiting. Why is that needed? Because recruiting is the lifeblood of college football, right? If you look at where all the top-end talent has gone and where it's consolidated to, it's the exact schools that have won national championships. And they're still going to be great. There's no doubt. But right now, Alabama has had 40 5-star recruits in the last 8 years. The 6th-place team on the 5-star recruit leaderboard, Texas A&M with 19. That's way too much of a separation. And so if we can separate out some of the talent and not get them consolidated in just to a few programs, I think that we can eventually get to a place where college football will have more parity. This 12-team playoff, I think, will be good for college football and hopefully soon. I think that it needs to be 2024, not 2026. But that's because we need to start unwinding this consolidation of talent as fast as we possibly can to achieve more parity and more interest in the sport overall. Okay, so there's some playoff discussion. When we come back, let's get into this week, week 1. My top 10 is coming straight at you. All right, welcome back to the program. Let's get into some reaction to week 1 of the college football season in the form of my new top 10. And it changed. And by the way, week 1 is always when it changes the most because we learn the most about teams that we didn't know anything about, like Oklahoma with all those new faces. So let's get up over here and come into the top 10. Rather than go 10-1, I think we all kind of know what's going on at the top of the top 10. So let's just start there. Alabama is going to be my number 1 team. Georgia is going to be my number 2 team. And Ohio State is number 3. Now, Ohio State did change, okay? Georgia and Ohio State flipped for me. Let me explain why very quickly. It's not about the way that Ohio State played against Notre Dame. I actually think that the way that they won that game for Ryan Day is very important to them moving forward. Okay, Ohio State last year, we saw what they were when they were just going to go out and get into shootouts and let Jackson Smith and Jigba go for 15 catches and 300 yards. I think there's a ceiling on that style of football for Ohio State. Okay, the way that they beat Notre Dame was a team that could play defense. And then in particular, late in that game, with a 7-minute drive that went 95 yards, they showed some toughness and the ability to run the ball when they had to. That's going to be important moving forward. So it's not about what they didn't do. It's more about the way Georgia looked against Oregon. So a little shift right there with 1, 2, and 3. All right, let's move on now, 4 through 10. I kept Clemson at number 4, even though I didn't love the way that they played in that first half. Clemson is a team that I think is going to have to get better. And I don't think that we should be I just don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Klubnik could be your quarterback moving forward, and he could steal that job from DJ Uiagalelei. Okay, so now 5 through 10, we're going to go Michigan at number 5. Remember, J.J. McCarthy is going to be starting this week against Hawaii. Texas A&M stays at 6, even though they did not look great. That was a weather interrupted game. We'll see how they do against App State this week. Now, 7 through 10, what do we got? OU jumps all the way in there. I was apprehensive to start the year with OU. And the reason I was is because there were so many new faces. You've got a new head coach. You've got a new quarterback that's a transfer. You had all the real core of their defense, even though it wasn't a great defense, the core of their defense graduated. They had a lot of transfers away from their offense. So I was a wait and see for Oklahoma. And I think that that was warranted. And I still don't feel bad about it. But after seeing what they did in week one, and more in particular, the way that they feel about their coach, this is a team that I think is a top 10 team. And I do think Oklahoma is still the class of the Big 12. That, for me, is the best team in the Big 12. And I think that they should win the conference this year. All right, now we go 8 through 10. SC is going to be at number 8. I loved what they did in week one, showed some defense. I like their matchup against Stanford, by the way. I think that they're going to cover that 9.5 that I saw. 9 and 10 for me is Notre Dame. And then the 10th ranked team, Baylor. They jump up. Dave Aranda, I still love what Baylor does. I love their matchup this week, by the way, against BYU. But that's what my top 10 looks like. I didn't knock Notre Dame too far down. I thought that they showed me a lot in that game against Ohio State, who I still think is an elite team. Folks, I think we have 3 elite teams in college football. We've got a few teams that if they iron out some kinks, I think could be there. And then from 7 on down to about 15, I think that we're going to have a lot of interchangeable parts. That's the sections of this rankings that I've got. Bama's up there at the top in large part due to the fact that they're great on defense, yes, but they've got a great quarterback, folks. I've been so impressed watching Bryce Young on film getting ready for Texas and Alabama this weekend, Big Noon Saturday. So I decided, hey, let's get him on the show. So coming up next, we talk with the Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young from Alabama. All right, welcome back into the show. And as advertised, we've got one of the best players in college football, the incumbent Heisman Trophy winner, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young, quarterback at Alabama. Bryce, what's going on, bud? How you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Listen, I never get to do your games, so this has been a treat this week, just watching you on film. And breaking you down. I was able to do it a little bit last year, in preparation for some of your postseason games. But I got to tell you, you made a throw last week early in the game. It was like the third snap of the game against Utah State, and you kind of run into your left, and you stopped and you sidearmed the ball. I don't even remember who you hit, but he's running the opposite direction. You threw tight window. I watched it 10 times, man. I was just like, what? What are we doing right now? That was I just got to ask you, where did you get that ability to change angles, change platforms, and throw the ball with that amount of talent?
It's definitely something that I worked on and developed over time. I have some great quarterback coaches back home. Taylor Kelly, Adam Dato, John Beck. They've been guys I've worked with from the 8th grade on, and they've really they really helped me develop as a passer, as a thrower, being able to throw from different platforms, different arm angles. That's stuff like that. It's stuff that I've gotten a lot better at recently over time, but it's definitely something that I worked on and developed, and still feel like I have a lot of work to do.
So it's interesting because when you play multiple years in college football, because of the fast change of cycle of players, you're going to have different wide receivers, right? And generally, and you're a case study in that this year. You lose Jamison Williams, you lose John Mechie. I mean, that's 175 catches and 2,700 yards and 23 touchdowns from a year ago. I mean, those guys were dynamic. Would you take me into your relationship and the feeling that you have with your current wide receiver core and how you feel like that's going here early in the season?
Yeah, with our current wide receiver core, obviously there's some new faces. There's guys that are stepping up in new roles that they haven't been in the past. You have a freshman who's been playing a lot. Obviously we have transfer guys. So, I think really what it is, when you come to the program, it's about buying in and assimilating to the culture, and then throughout the off season, getting as much reps and work together as we can, inside the building during practice, outside the building, however, whether it's back home or, it's just getting extra reps in after the practice. So, for me, it's just about trying to get reps, trying to get chemistry down, us having an open line of communication, me trying to communicate, what I want, what I expect, the same thing with them, how they like the ball thrown, what they're thinking on these routes and these reads. So, I think the biggest thing when, we're having people step up and playing different roles is making sure that we're communicating. And that was a big, point of emphasis during the off season. And now we've had so many reps under our belt through practice. And, we have one game under our belt now, and I just continue to feel more comfortable, and we keep building together day in and day out.
Well, it'll be full display Saturday there in Texas. Can't wait to get there. You talked about the culture of the program and how you have to come in and assimilate to the culture. Earlier this week on my podcast, I talked about the fact that being in Nick Saban's program is like having a reckoning every single day. It doesn't matter what day it is. There is a reckoning. I've had it described to me by several coaches that have coached with Coach Saban. You talk about assimilating to the culture. Can you explain what the day-to-day pressure is like at Alabama to live up to the standard, that reckoning that Coach Saban has?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's constant. We understand that there's so much greatness here. Our standard is, is so high, and it's a day in and day out process. You can't be satisfied with success. You can't feel entitled to it. That's something that Coach tells us and talks to us about all the time. For us, accomplishing our goals isn't something that we can do over one game or over a span of a week. It's something that's every single day, day in and day out, and not every day is going to be perfect. But as long as you're working and trying to give it your all and live up to that standard every single day, some days maybe you don't feel like you reached it. Some days you feel like you fall short, but you can't ever give up on that. It's making sure that we're not satisfied, we're not happy, and even when we do accomplish our goal, short term, we have to understand that there's still that Monday of practice, that next day, whatever it may be. So obviously it's something that's a little intense being here, but I knew that coming here is what I signed up for. It pushes me personally to be a lot better. It pushes us as a team to be a better unit. So I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Well, and that's one of the things I talked about is the fact that it takes a unique person to want to be there and to be in that environment. That's part of the reason why you guys have been so good for so long. Part of being a great quarterback is the ability to manipulate the pocket, think on your feet, adjust quickly. You do it as good as anybody out there. Like I said earlier, it's been amazing watching you on film, and I have more respect for you by the day every time that I watch it. But I will say this, your ability to flip the switch from the celebration of the finger roll to the calm dapping up Coach Saban on the sideline, that was next level, man. And I got to tell you, that was a smooth dap you and Saban had, right? Coach Saban, I'm sorry, I don't want to just throw out last names. That was smooth, man. I mean, it looked like you guys had worked on that.
Not coach is smooth like that. You feel me? That's him. But yeah, I mean, it was funny that the camera caught it because obviously it's celebrating with your teammates, and we had just scored, so we celebrate for the time being, and then actually Coach, I messed up earlier in the drive. I made a mistake. And that was on me. I didn't handle the operation correctly, and I could tell from Coach's body language and everything that he was ready to tell me about it. So right when I saw him, which was right in midair, I realized all right, well, I probably should dial this back because I already know what I'm gonna hear it about. But we talked about it. He told me what I had to do on that, and he was completely right. So it was a quick turnaround from being in the end zone to a learning experience.
That's amazing. By the way, if people are asking me well, what's a reckoning? That's a reckoning. When you're trying to celebrate a touchdown, but he's bringing up something that happened during the drive that you messed up in operation, and the fact that you knew midair, you're giving the finger roll celebration, you're oh, he's about to get me for that operations error, man. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Hey, bud, I can't wait for the game this weekend. Obviously, the stage is yours in college football. Biggest game of the weekend. It's going to be hot. Make sure you're hydrated. But, yeah, can't wait to see you down there. Best of luck, bud, and we'll catch up during the course of the season.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You got it. There he goes. Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner from a year ago. All right, coming up next on here, Breaking the Huddle, a little KlattBack, and that'll do it for us. All right, welcome back to the show. This is Breaking the Huddle. I'm Joel Klatt. Last segment here, a little KlattBack. We're going to do something different. We're going to pull these tweets, and I have not seen them yet. Okay, so natural reaction. Here we go. What do we got? Let's see. D. Beepy says, I can't wait until 2027 when you start clamoring for a 24-team playoff. Hey, man, that ain't happening. That ain't happening. Now, full disclosure, I was not a huge playoff proponent to begin with, but the playoff is here, and this is a way to fix the playoff. Now, there is a point of diminishing returns. Remember, you can't just continue to add playoff games, because what you're going to do is that you're going to get to a point where the networks don't pay more for the games that they're getting because those games aren't as valuable. So as much as fans want this to just be about the games on the field, there is a monetary element to this. And you can't overlook that. So the point of diminishing returns is going to happen, and I think it's at 12. You can't go past 12. You still retain some of the importance of the regular season, like I explained earlier. DBP, but sweet avatar, bro. I like the silly face that you're giving. You and my kindergartner would have a good time together. All right, next. Colton says, Utah State held Bama scoreless in the fourth. They deserve a spot here, Joel. A spot where? I'm sorry, exactly where? Was Alabama trying super hard in the fourth quarter? I'm sorry. We do not give out participation ribbons here. You can't say we got shut out and throttled, but hey, we didn't give up a score in the fourth quarter. I mean, you can't say that. Oh my goodness. Colton, bull named _Gus. All right. Well, at least your handle has Gus in it. And speaking of Gus, Gus and I will be in Austin this weekend. Bama and Texas, Big Noon Saturday. Catching on Fox. That is at noon Eastern, folks. This show is Breaking the Huddle. It's been brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Remember, it is the one fans deserve. See you next week.